So today I'm going to talk to you about an important global issue, and it's something that's impacting every business regardless of their industry, and that is the digital skills gap. Now, before we begin, I want you all to do me a favor, and if you take nothing else away from today's talk, I want you to remember the following 4 words for me. So build, borrow, buy, bot. So it's nice alliteration there. And it seems easy, but using these 4 words, I'm going to explain to you how they can be applied to your business to help you bridge the digital skills gap. Now, before we do this, however, it's important to understand the current state of the marketplace. So during COVID-19, many businesses were forced to implement their digital transformation plans overnight, and that's something that can typically take months or even years for companies to plan. Now, there's a few companies, Twitter in particular, have been quite vocal in the marketplace about employees having the option in the future then to work 100% remotely, 100% of the time, if that's something that they choose to do. Then we have Pinterest. So in August 2020, Pinterest announced that they were actually going to give up their 490,000 square foot office space in favor of a more distributed workforce. Now, on the flip side of this, you have companies like Netflix and Bloomberg who are so in favor of having on the office post-COVID. So when you're considering hiring for a future workforce, we must first consider where they will actually be based. Now, if we look at companies like Shopify, Scraping Hub, and GitLab, for example, they're all in favor of 100% work from anywhere policies, even before COVID came into play. So last year, I interviewed Eric Burke, who's a talent acquisition manager and a very close friend of Sigmar, but he's the TA manager for Scraping Hub. And he said they feel so sorry, as I was saying there, so companies like Shopify and Scraping Hub and GitLab, they're all favoring a 100% work from anywhere policy. And that was even before COVID came into play. So last year I interviewed Eric Burke, who's the talent acquisition manager for Scraping Hub. And he's a very close friend of Sigmar as well, but he had said that they favoured this approach as it allowed them the opportunity to hire the best talent regardless of the location, but it also meant that it gave their employees the freedom to choose their own working environment as well. Now, if we look at a hybrid model, we have companies like Fujitsu, Indeed, and Siemens who all favour the hybrid approach. And when I say this, it means letting employees choose if they want to be office-based or if they want to be remote. And that seems to be the most popular option when I've been chatting to clients in the Irish market so far. Then we have Dropbox. Now, Dropbox are taking it one step further and they're implementing what they refer to as virtual first. So what they've decided to do is change all of their current office locations into collaborative workspaces, or as they call them, Dropbox studios. Now, the one caveat that they have, though, is that if someone is using these studios, it can't be used for solo work. It's only for in-person teamwork collaboration. So it's a different spin on the work environment. They've also allowed employees to create non-linear workdays, and it means then that the employees can choose their own working hours to suit themselves. They can design their own schedule, and it means that they can also have a little bit more independence of their role, but they don't have to reply to emails when they're offline. So it takes that pressure off the employee as well. One thing that they're interestingly doing as well is that everything, as the name indicates, is going to be virtual first. So rather than scheduling a Zoom meeting or a Teams meeting, whatever method you use, they're encouraging employees to see if they could solve the same issue or have the same meeting over email or Slack or even through different other methods rather than scheduling in video calls, which I'm sure is a bit of a pain for a lot of people, especially if there's a bit of over communication going on in the businesses. So now what I want to do is have a look at the pipeline for the Irish market. So using a combination of our own research for the markets that we operate in, as well as looking at online analytics platforms, we were able to compile the information here that was from 2019. So in 2019, 92% of all IT professionals that were placed in roles in Ireland all came from within the Irish market. 15% of these were offered indefinite full-time remote roles. 35% were offered short-term remote as well as on-site whenever the restrictions are lifted. And then 50% were allowed to choose if they wanted to be on-site or based at home. If we compare this to the German market, we can see that the German market tends to be more reliant on talent coming in from abroad. So 66% of all IT professionals placed came from within Germany. However, 70% of them were non-citizens and 30% of them were German citizens. So as you can see, there's already an opportunity there for the Irish market to rely more on external talent as well. And if we look at where these candidates are sourced from, keeping in mind, obviously, Brexit has just kicked in. A lot of these options are bringing talent over from non-EU locations, which means that, again, there's some hidden gems there of where we can attract talent to for the Irish market. Now, when I was chatting to clients on the market, one thing kept coming up repeatedly, and that is the human element. So time and time again, when we're chatting to businesses, they're very quick to emphasize the importance of hiring a human. Now, when I say this, I mean someone coming in and they have the soft skills to talk to the rest of the business. So Cross Business School in London carried out a study across 158 companies who were undergoing digital transformation. And these companies were concerned about finding the right tech talent for their business. However, when they were asked what the most important skill was for their hires, they all indicated soft skills or human skills. So I'm all for automation, don't get me wrong, but if there's a major decision to be made in a business and it's something that's going to make or break your business or affect employment of, say, 500 people, would you want that decision made by an algorithm or would you want that decision made by a person? So soft skills will always be in demand in the workforce. So as well as addressing the need for new technical skills, we also need to consider how we can retain the human element. So after all, anytime we're designing a business strategy, we should always be thinking of the social, the mental, and the physical well-being of the employees, as that should be always at the heart of any business. Now, when we talk about the future of work, some people don't realize the future of work is actually happening now. So we've carried out some research and it's framed in three main categories. So the type of work that people do, the workforce itself, and then the workplace, which we've touched on already. So let's start off with the type of work. So technology is constantly emerging, and with that so is the skill set that is required to support these different changes. So a good indication of this is actually the creation of what we refer to as hybrid roles. So on the market, we're seeing a lot more crossover of skill sets. For example, I was working with a top tier global law firm, and they were hiring for their first legal tech team. So they wanted to have a data scientist who was coming from a legal background, so someone who was a trained lawyer. Now, obviously, that's a difficult find, but we're going to see more and more of these roles come to the front, particularly as technology continues to infiltrate into areas where maybe it hasn't been as prominent in the past. So then if we look at the actual workforce itself, so over the past 5 years, there's been a significant shift from traditional graduate recruitment programs to early careers models. So companies like Accenture, for example, are tapping into school leavers or professional apprenticeships to train up this talent coming through and then building out their own workforce to suit the needs of their own business. Vodafone and Facebook have announced there last year as well that they were launching programs specifically for women returning to work. It could be after maternity leave or it could be after long-term career breaks as well. And then you have businesses like SAP and Microsoft who are hiring the underrepresented but very highly technical neurodiverse candidates who may be very technically strong but may need some more assistance when it comes to the soft skills in the market. So in Q4 of 2020, we actually carried out a survey in Sigmar across 1,000 companies, as well as 3,500 candidates. And it was to get some insights into the perception of temp, contract and permanent workforce opportunities in the future. Now, interestingly enough, 82% of candidates that responded came back to say that they would be more likely to consider temp or contract employment opportunities if it offered the flexibility for their schedule or the working environment that they were in. And then on the flip side of that, 91% of companies said that they're more likely to hire temps or contractors than they would before in COVID and are happy to offer this flexibility as well. So you can see that there is an alignment between the companies and the employees themselves. So that brings me very nicely back to our 4Bs, and don't worry, I won't test you on this one. So we have the build, the borrow, buy and bot. So let's start off with build. So Ireland has a fantastic reputation of partnering with academic institutions to create a future viable workforce. So the IDA actually announced yesterday that the National Institute for Bioprocessing Research and Training, or NIBRT, as it's a lot easier to say, produces 4,000 graduates annually. Now, recognising that there's going to be a skills shortage for cell and gene therapy in the future, they've partnered with US companies to help build the talent to suit this skill set, and then that will fill that gap going into the future. One of my favourite examples of this as well, of where I've seen it work very well historically, would be first derivatives. So first derivatives hire candidates coming through from STEM related subjects, and they'll train them up into a particularly niche technology called KDB+. Now, this is a technology that's in very high demand, particularly within large fintech organizations. So what they'll do is they'll take this newly built workforce and then they'll contract them out on daily rates to larger fintech organizations, and they can charge a higher premium because it is in such high demand. And that means that they get a quicker return on investment for their employees as well. Now, what I want you to do is have a look at your own team. So is there anyone in your own team that you think that you can build in to fill these future gaps in your organization? And I also want you to have a look at the expertise that's needed to upskill these people. So do you have that internally, or is it something that you need to go external for? So just something to think about when you're putting together your strategy. Now I will move on to borrow. So this is actually a fantastic safety blanket for companies that are looking to build their own talent. So while you're building that talent, you can borrow or you can rely on external contractors. Now, when I say contractors, I could mean daily rate contractors, fixed term contractors, temp assignments, or even secondment if you're lucky to partner with other organizations. So companies like Facebook, Google, Johnson Controls, Decare Dental, and Deutsche Bank all use this option, and it allows you to get access to industry experts in the area until you can grow up your own internal staff, but it also allows you to keep your own headcount low, and it can also relieve any pressures that you may have with seasonal fluctuations in demand as well. So without starting a bidding war, we're going to move on to the buy option. So what I want you to do is have a look at your local competitor or even your global competitor now that global mobility is more accessible for a number of companies. So does this competitor have the talent you need? And what I want you to do is have a look at your candidate attraction policy and then have a look at the other company. So what are they doing that's different? So particularly throughout COVID, we've seen a huge increase of candidates in the tech space who aren't really interested in the bells and whistles that are offered with the free food and the ping pong tables, particularly because they don't have access to this at home. But there's more of a buy-in and more interest in the actual projects that they'll be working on, and as well as the story of the actual company. So you must think about this when you're looking at the buy option. You have to look at how you're also selling your business to candidates. So how do you position your business or tell your story that's going to set you apart from other competitors on the market? So now we'll move on to bot. So automation is actually a fantastic way to bridge the digital skills gap. So companies like Johnson & Johnson use this method very well. So what they'll do is they'll automate repetitive processes, and then those displaced workers that they have who would have done these jobs previously, they'll look at them and reskill them into positions that they may need now or even in the future. So rather than take my word for it, I've done a little bit of research into companies working worldwide who have operated within tech bubbles to see how they've managed to overcome their digital skills gap. So we'll start off with Udacity Connect. So tech jobs have driven a significant portion of Nevada's economic recovery, and companies such as Tesla, Google, Apple, and Amazon have all opened facilities there. So Reno itself, which is where Udacity was based, was facing a skills gap for these tech jobs. And local businesses then partnered with Udacity, who are an upskilling program, to create an initiative. And this is basically aimed at upskilling local residents to become full stack developers, which was the skill that was in the highest demand. Now, due to the success of this program, the course grew in popularity, and they actually added additional courses into RPA, machine learning, and cybersecurity. So they've managed to actually build their own staff as well as retrain others in the local area. Then we'll move on to Prosperity 2020. So IT is one of the most robust industries in Utah, and the employment growth in all IT in all IT segments grew by 21% between 2008 and 2012. So Prosperity 2020 was formed, and it's a coalition between the Utah educational officials as well as private businesses to increase educational output in STEM-related subjects across the state. So as well as encouraging STEM from a young age for people to upskill and build out the future workforce, again, they retrained the current workforce to fill in the skills gaps that they had. Then we have many businesses who are boosting diversity, productivity and innovation by investing in virtual or in-person work-based learning programs. So T-Mobile is a good example, as they use Merison's immersive learning technology to help employees develop stronger soft skills. And that again is coming back to, say, the companies that I mentioned earlier, like Microsoft and SAP, where they could be working with strong technical candidates, but they may need a little bit more support on the soft skills side. We also have companies like Workday. So Workday's Opportunity On-Ramps program provides training and internships for non-traditional candidates coming from diverse backgrounds. And then we have Microsoft, who most recently committed to assisting 25 million workers acquire digital skills for the future. So I know that's a lot of information in a very short space of time. But next time you hear the hype in the media about the digital skills gap, I want you to take a step back, take a deep breath, and remember the 4 Bs: build, borrow, buy, bot. Thanks.